even more, I want to go analog. So now I'm going analog. You just saw the analog thing going on right there? See, Studio E in Studio E is not only the music, but it's the technology behind the music. It's what is happening from the very taping of it, or how are we taping or whatever. Well, I'm not going to go into that now. The main thing, though, is playing. Seeing and playing the keyboards quickly, with shortcuts, with tricks, with fun things, with exercises. Not exercises, I don't like calling them exercises. More like sounds. To make sounds and do things that will make you touching into the keyboard better, so you'll be able to play it better, quicker, easier, faster. And you can communicate what you're doing to others. So like if there's a guitar player or a bass player or even a drummer, but a drummer is really cool because you can just do it in time, which is a whole nother 50% of music. We're just on the letter side of music, which is 50%. The whole other 50% of music is time. Well, I don't want to get into that now either. I want to try to stay focused here on these intervals and these little tiny pieces in our brain that are eased in seeing the keys. How quickly can you see where a letter is, and how quickly can you see where two letters are a distance apart? So like if I say a distance apart number, like a third, then what is that? I mean, where, if you started at one point, what would be a third up from it and what would be a third down from it? I mean, you know, just one point, just pick a thing like E. Well, it's E, you know, right on top of the skis. Going E. All right, here's E. Okay, so right on top of E is F. E, F. Right below E is D sharp. But that's not really what I'm talking about, is it? Because I said a third. I didn't say a half step. So wait a minute. What is a third then? Well, a third note, instead of taking half steps where they're touching each other, I went I went 3 notes in between, and I guarantee it's a third. A third is made up of a whole step and a whole step. That's a third. But that's a complicated kind of thing because measurement in music is in 2 types of words. 1/2 or W, standing for whole. Half. But I can go whole plus whole, and that's 2 wholes, right? I can go whole plus half, that's a whole plus a half. But a half is touching each other. A whole has 1 note in between. Think of it. 2 halves make a whole, right? So if I go from E to F, that's a half step. And then I go from F to F sharp, that's another half step. I've gone 2 half steps, right? Well, 1/2 plus 1/2 in math equals 1. In other words, in music, it equals whole. A half plus a whole. But here's the problem. In music, it doesn't equal 1. A half plus a half equals 2. Ding. Dong. Why 2? Because it's a second. It's called an interval. It is a distance. All of a sudden, you've gone a distance from one to another distance, to the right, by the way, going higher. Because that's what we're talking intervals, going higher right now. So we've gone from 1 to 2. And we've gone an interval distance of a 2, a second. But we've also gone a whole step. 2 halves. From E to F sharp, it's a whole step. But then if you're on the second house, you're going to go to the third house. It says in the log of zoning laws, which we've seen many times, but I'd like to remind you, 2 holes plus a half plus 3 holes plus a half equals a major street. So I'm talking about this part down here, where I'm on the first house of the street, and I go a hole and I get to the second. And then I go another whole step from that second house, distance-ways. Because when we came out of the city, where everyone was touching each other, the chromatic city where everyone was touching each other, we invented the suburbs. And in the suburbs, not all the houses touching each other. There was some space in between. There were these little yards in between. And that could be a whole step of a yard. But it can be even further than a whole step. But let's just talk about a whole step right now. So now, I'm going to whole step as a measurement. It's also a second. It's your second interval you're learning. The first interval you learned, you already learned, you didn't even know you learned it. But it's because it was 1. 1? How could 1 be an interval? Because you can have two instruments, like a trombone and a violin playing the same note and the exact same pitch on the keyboard. And there's two instruments playing it, right? That is called an interval of a one. Or there's another word in music for it called a unison. U-N-I-S-O-N, unison. So it's a unison or a one that triggers the first note of every street or every possible address in Chromatic City. This is why music is so cool, because we talk about abstract numbers. We don't necessarily count from 1, 2, 3, 4 and call that a fourth. We don't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and call that a fifth. No, that's counting Chromatic City houses. No, we count some wholes and some halves in order to get a distance somewhere. For example, to get from the first house on a major street to the third house on a major street, you go two whole steps. For example, here's D major street here. And from D to E is a whole step. And from E to F sharp is a whole step because you have one note in between, which happens to be F. And that's a whole step. Two halves make a whole. We just started E to F, F sharp, a whole step. Okay, so you got two whole step. Okay, whole step. Whole step. One note in between is a second. Because look, there's a 2 right near the address of E on D Street. You know why? Because 2 answers the question, what is the second house on the street? Ding. Gong. It's E. Second house on D Street. Excuse me. D major. But what's the third house on the street? It's F sharp. Another whole step away from the second house to get to the third house. However, because it got the address of 3, it's now called the interval third. I gotta give you a gong mallet on that one. Third. Now things are starting to make sense. It's not like counting every single individual note. It's counting some wholes and some halves to get to a certain distance. And that's where it got tricky because, man, 2 holes all the time was kind of tricky to see. You know, here I am on a G sharp, and I want to know what is my 3 from a G sharp up and my 3 from a G sharp down. Well, up isn't too hard because I can see the whole step and the whole step, but walking right up the sharps. But going down a 3 from any starting point like an F sharp is kind of tricky. Because I got to go down a whole step and then down another whole step. Well, some people have invented the note, the same, look in between. Hold on here. I'm going from the note to the right, up, which is higher, and I'm also going from the note, which is 1, to the left, down, lower, the same interval. So do I know the interval of a third going up from a note, and do I know a third going down? I could say that something, do I know a note going the 4th going up and a 4th going down, a 5th going up and a 5th going down, a 6th going up and a 6th going down, a 7th going up and a 7th going down, a major 7th going up and a major 7th going down. All those different symbols distance away from that one. Anyway, so here. Can you find an interval easily going to the right higher or going to the left lower? Well, I always say use notes in between. Like if you're going to go to a second higher, there's one note in between. From a C, there's to be a C sharp. A second down from a C, there's a B. A second up from an E, there's an F in between. A second down from an E is to a D. Right, but let's go a little further. I'm telling you that there's 3 notes in between for a third. There's 4 notes in between for a fourth. So it's so weird. For a second, there's 1 note in between. Weird. But for a third, like the third house on the street, the third, there's 3 notes in between this first note and this third note. There's 4 notes in between this first note and this fourth note. But unfortunately, that's where it ends. Because right here, at the 4th position, there it goes to a fifth, right? But there's a whole step there. And remember, where there's ever a W, you can always put another half to split it in half. A W can be split in half, right? So if you have 4 to 5, that's a W, right? Well, it is, because here's the main thing. W, W, half, then whole gets you the 4. From 3 to 4 gets you half, and then from 4 to 5 it gets you a whole. That's the first whole of the 3 holes to finish out a major town, major street. But remember, I'm still talking wholes and halves, making many of them together in order to make a distance called an interval. It's a great trick. So watch this. Let's just count just letter side of the street. Remember, there's 2 sides of the street, letter side and the street side, which is above it. Where do you walk down the center of the street? Right in, so you're touching both sides. With what finger? Mainly your thumb. You ride your thumb in both hands right on that part. For the art of demonstration, I am not playing the exact fingering that you would, because number one, I'm using mini keys. As you can see, compared to a regular key, this E being a regular key, this E being a mini key, there's quite a difference. Although they're excellent to play both of them. But the big key is very, very cool, and that's what we use in the main stuff and all the plain stuff. Of course, we use the main regular full-size key. But these are mini keys. All right. So what I'm talking about here is this E right here and this E right here are different size. So I also am playing at a different angle. So I will not have the correct thumbing all the time. But basically, I want you to keep your thumbs right on that note, on those letters, at least at all times. And if not, always on the sharp side of the street, even higher, 3-dimensionally higher. About 3/4 of an inch higher off of a letter key is a sharp key. That is so cool that it's higher, that you have to jump up for it. That's one of the things that you'll never be able to simulate on a flat screen, even though you can have the patterns of the 2s and the 3s, which is the sharp side of the street. Even though you can have that, you won't have that raised part that you get when you have a regular keyboard. And you know what? That's the best part. Because when you're up on that key right there, you can swing your thumb underneath. Hello, I'm going to go hopping, leaping. I'm going to go leaping from one note to the next. But I still have to learn how to balance my thumb on the sharp. To keep my finger up there on that sharp is so important. To not lose balance is important. That's why I always said at the very beginning of Studio E KEYSongs, start with G sharp, the middle of the keyboard. That is so cool. The middle of sharps, I'm sorry, the middle of sharps. Haha, not the middle of the keyboard, middle of sharps. So anyway, so I am just saying that learning all these keys and stuff like that, when we learn intervals from a starting point, going higher or going lower, we will be able to see different letters appear by just remembering the rule. For example, let's just take the 2. Well, a 2 from E is F sharp. A 2 down from E the other way is not F sharp. F sharp's way down here, by the way. F sharp doesn't change. It always stays the bottom of the 3s, no matter where. So here I am, E right here. I'm going up to F sharp as a 2. But if I go down a 2, negative 2, it's D. One note in between, right? Well, then there's that cool thing that, you say, well, there's a split there of what is the split. Well, what is the split? The split is when you take an M, which is a W, which is a whole, and you move it to another W, it gets you to a 3. And that is such a cool thing because you are at a third. You are 3. You have gotten there. You are at a 3. Oh, hello 3. How are ye? Okay, so the only problem is you went a whole to get to the 2, and then you went a whole, not a half. This doesn't touch. There's a note in between here. What is it called? It's not called the 2. It's not called a 3. It's a shrunken 3, a little less than a 3, but it's not a 2. It could be a +2. As you'll see in the future numbers, you can plus a number and raise it. It could be a +2, but a long time ago, they decided they're going to name it M3. Little M3, little minor 3, but it's in between here. That means there is another type 3 that is in between the 2 and the 3, called an M3. It's 1 whole step and 1 half step. 1 whole step and 1 half step. meaning its distance is different than a 3. There is a difference between an M, that little M, and a 3, and a 3. There is a difference here. There's a difference, a direct difference. They touch each other though. You know why? Because a M3 touches a 2. These all touch each other, but there is a note here. Guess what? It's 2 notes in between. Remember, this was 1 note in between, you know, from the first note, wherever you're going. This M3 is 2 notes in between, because I told you there's 3 notes in between is a 3. This testing of in between is so great when you're going the negative way. It's kind of easy to spot your 3s as you learn them in your sight in going right, going higher. But going the other way is a little bit different. In your right hand now, I'm in the guitar part. I'm shifting my finger from being the 1 of being being the starting point to maybe my 2nd or my 3rd finger, so I can go down from it. I was on the 1st finger going up, able to use my 2nd, my 3rd, and my 4th in that order. Remember, like this, thumbs up. Okay, so I am talking about being able to play a distance in your mind either way from a starting point. So you go positive or negative. If you use the notes in between rules, then they can test very easily, especially going negative. Like if you're E and you want to know what is an actual 3rd down from E. Not an M3, not a 2 note in between. See, D and D sharp would be 2 notes in between. That's an M3 down. What's an M3 up from E? Oh wait, you knew that a 3 up was G sharp because we were just looking at it. It happens to be G. There is a note in between F sharp and G sharp, between the 2nd and the 3rd note of major street. Ah! Watch this, I'm looking here. I'm looking here. Oh wait, oh yeah. Hold on here. This is a 1, this is a beginning where you are. But from here, we're going to go higher, up a 2nd, or lower a 2nd. From here, we're going to go higher, a M3, as just discussed, or lower an M3. This note up an M3 does not equal this note an M3. This is not right. Why is this necessary? Because this note down happens to equal this note up. What does that make a difference? That makes a big difference to me. You know why? Because this note down equals this note up is kind of the same rule they were talking about when we shifted it another different way and went down a 4th, it equaled a 5th up. It equaled it a 5th up. But I can't find the... All right, a 4th down. Wait, what happened to the cards went into the flame? Okay, a 5th up equals a 4th down. The testing. Okay, remember this 5th that we were talking about? We haven't really learned them yet. We learned some 4ths because 4ths are easier because 4 notes have 4 notes in between. So let's use that rule to go from the 1 down to the negative 4. We guarantee that that will be correct, right? Because we're going to have 4 notes in between. Watch this. Here we go. E. 1, 2, 3, 4 notes in between, and then I'm going to the next note next to that, and what do I get? B. Okay, I can test it because there's 1 note in between. Or I can just count down just on the letter side, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it mostly works out all the time. But look at this. 4 down equals 5 ding up. Let's see if it works out. Start on E as number 1, 2 is F, 3 is G, 4 is A, 5 is B. I only counted letters now. I know that it's not the actual major street letters, it's just letters on the keyboard. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, F, E, C, B, A. All right, anyways, so E to B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, 1 is the one you start on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 is E. Then I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Just counting letter side. Not even looking at the sharp side, just looking at the letter side now. Just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. In most cases, that works on 4s and 5s. Not on 3s. Threes change a whole lot. But in fours and fives, it almost always works out. If you start on a letter and you count to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you count to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, rather than counting all those notes in between. You start spacing out your brain so you're not counting all those notes in between all the time. You're actually counting just distances, spacing. And then your brain starts to take a picture of that interval from 1 to 5, from 1 down 4. It's the same. It's an octave apart. Let's not get abstract here. But anyway, it's the same note. 8 letters apart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. A 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It works out every time, almost. There's only one time on the letter side that it doesn't work out. We don't need to discuss it tonight. Just remember that 7 out of 8 times it works. Or 6 out of 7, sorry. 6 out of 7 times it works. Okay, so here's the thing. So you got a 5th going on here. You got a 4th going on down here. This is just the cool distancing. Again, why would it be cool to know a M3 down from this note? A strange M3, that 2 note in between. Remember, if it has 2 notes in between going this way, I guarantee you 2 notes in between this way will be the same. As far as an interval distance, distance is an interval. What is an interval? An interval is 2. 2 notes, not 1 note. 1 note is a letter, right? 1 note equals a letter, L-E-T-T-E-R. 2 notes equal an interval, I-N-T-E-R-V-A-L. Interval. 3 notes equals a chord, C-H-O-R-D. Chord. 4 notes equals a chord, 5 notes equals a chord, 6 notes equals a chord, 7 notes equals chord. From 3 higher. What are you talking about? Well, we have this measurement called an 8, right? A half step, I mean. And it's nothing that is a measurement. It's not an interval. It's just a measurement. Just like a W is not an interval. It's a measurement. So 1/2 and W are measurements. 2 is the second interval. 1 is the first interval.
Really?
Then we go to 2. Then we go to 2, right? Either way. -2 or 2. Then, though, I want to tell you this. If you learn that half, that's in between 2 and the way down, you equal a major 7 way going up. So you know any note touching 1 is the major 7 of that note. It's the 7th house on any major street. It's only 1/2 step below. So it's the greatest, coolest thing to know this. If you go from the 1st to the major 7th, it's the same note as the 1st to the half step below. Major 7th. But what if I went to the 1st to the 2nd, the full 2nd? I wouldn't be on the major 7th anymore. I would be on the 7th, which happens to touch each other, 7th being a little lower. And if you want to really get cool, 7 touches 6. Ooh, yeah! These way up here, remember I was talking earlier tonight about some notes down here next to 1 that touch each other, like 2, M3, and 3? Well, look at the top here. We got some really cool interval numbers from 1. The actual 6th house on the street and the actual major 7th house on the street. But there is 1 note in between. Because when we do those whole steps, there's always a note in between. And remember, at the end of the major street, there's 3 W's. There's 3 W's. You're down the top part right here. Talking about these 3 W's. We were talking about those bottom 2 W's earlier, but we're talking about those 3 W's right now. Those 3 W's equal the 5, the 6, and the major 7. Here is the 5, the 6, and the major 7. These parts up here, but they all have notes in between because they're all whole steps. They're W's. Remember, you can always take a W and slice it in half because 2 halves make a W. This you can't slice in half. Well, you can mathematically, you know that. But a half you can't slice in half and use it because, well, there is. You actually can kind of have a quarter tone as far as tuning. Yes, you can. Oh, it's really cool. But it's a measurement. 1/2 is a measurement and W is a measurement. Second is a W. Second is the interval relationship number that they start with. 1, 2. Then they go 1, 2, M3, which I don't have here. Then 3, which I don't have here. Then 4, which touch each other, 3 and 4 touch each other, and the +4, and then by golly, +4, which I didn't even talk about, and just skimming right over, gets to 5. Now 5 is a part of Major Town and Blues Town. 4 is a part of Major Town and Blues Town. These two notes not only repeat themselves when you go lower and upper around a 1, but when you go in Blues Town or Major Town, these two note interval distance-wise from 1 and what? Picture-wise. Your brain has seen you try to figure this distance of a 4th down, a 5th up equals the same, or a 4th up and a 5th down equals the same. But anyways, your brain has tried to think this all the time, and by trying to think this all the time, it is pictured in order to remember it. Hey, from an E to a B is a 5th. From an E to an A is a 4th. Here's a complicated one. From an F sharp to a B is a 4th. From an F sharp to a C sharp is a 5th. My 4ths and my 5ths going up. What's a 4th down? F to C sharp is a 4th down. F to B is a 5th down. I know my 5ths both directions from 1. I know my 4ths both directions from 1. I know my +4s, which is in between 4 and 5. I know my 3s, which is touching 4. Remember, we got these sections, and 1 starts right in the 2nd. And it goes from the 2nd to the 3rd, and different varieties of the 3rd. And then it goes into the 3rd, and it goes into the 4th, and the 5th, and different varieties in the 4th. Yes, I have mentioned this. There is a +4 that goes in between. Since I'm going through them all quickly, I might as well tell you, yes, there is a 4 to 5, has a note in between, has the first of the holes at the very end of Major Street, so there has to be a note in between. We put a plus in front of that note, and that makes it raised, one note in between, whatever letter this is, to make a +4. But a distance from here to here is different than a distance from here to here. This is a 4, this is a +4, this is a 5. Complete distance. You can go this way too. A down and a +4, down a 4th, down a 5th. They still touch each other. They're still next to each other. The intervals expand either way chromatically. Yeah, using chromatic city. They go half-step spread. Down or up. It's an actual first interval. A 3rd is an interval. A M3, the colors. Wait, hold it. Wait. Here it is. The M3 is an interval. The 3 is an interval. There are 12 intervals, including 1 and including 8. E to B is a 4th, down. 4th up to 4th down is different. But if I change the number, make it 4th up is 5th down, or 5th up or 4th down, then it's the same. But if I have an interval the same down as I do the same up, it's going to be different. That's the cool thing about music. Even if it's a second, remember the little second. From E to F sharp is different from E to D. That is difference. That's okay. It's when we got into the 4th and the 5th that they started really looking at each other. And then I said, hey, it's got to work out for a couple other ones. And it turned out that half step, which is a measurement, worked out for that major 7 way up at the top here. That was pretty cool. That one little half step touching right here is that note way far away going to the right. Hard to see. It's nice to see it. And the way to see it is looking at a half step below. I'm just chromatically, let's say I just want to go just the letters. In this hand, I want to play the major 7 off of it. Can I? Yes. Look at that. Isn't that cool? I have to reach from an F sharp. Isn't that cool? Get to the major 7. Because it has to touch it. It has to be a half step away from it. That's the cool thing about measurement down from a note. You can find a note way far away up from it. This happens to be the major 7, the 7th note of a major scale, MAJ7. Is a half step away. Again, the exercise was to take your thumb and put it on only the letters. And from that position, going up, going in with your right hand, using your second or third finger, find whatever size of the keys you're using. Full size or mini keys. Mini keys are really cool because they fit on a desk really cool. You just have them like right by your computer. It's really cool. Anyway, so you go from one note to the major 7, which is touching going down. Remember, whatever note it is touching, so you can see. Like from D to C sharp is a major 7. Yeah. From C sharp down to C is a major 7. See, so you got to know that. But we're going up all the time, right? But I'm going to only use just the letters, and I want to identify to make sure that I'm going just 1/2 step away. So I got to go from D to C sharp, not D to C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not always correct when you go letter, 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 letter. Sometimes you got to look backwards and check yourself. Oh, backwards, a major 7 is touching the 1. Well, then if it's touching the 1, then it's got to be major 7. It's got to be C sharp. It is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, major 7. That happy great major sound of D. And if you look at it on the chart, it is exactly that. It's the one that's burning down by the lamp. Oh. Hold on here. Oh, excuse me. And I'm only filing the major 7, major 7, major 7, major 7. It's great to look. It's hard to see it. Because a lot of times you're going from a letter note to a sharp note. You're not going from a letter note to a letter note. But again, if you start on a, whoa, the battery pack. If you start on a sharp first with your thumb, it's not always going to be a sharp for the major 7. It's going to be a letter a lot of times. Look, from A sharp to G is the major 7 of A sharp because it's touching it, right? From A sharp to A is the major 7 of A sharp. But do you know it? Can you see it quickly? It's hard to measure this way, but if you know to go this way by 1/2 step, bing, bang, bing, you have the major 7. You have that note right next to 8 that's touching 8. You have it because you looked this way to find that way. The quickness, the excellentness, the understanding, the practice of playing a major 7th. All the letters in a row, all the sharps in a row, your thumb guiding. That's the letter that you go a major 7 from. Letter, 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 letter. Sharp, 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 sharp. That's the thing you do. That's the thing you do. You practice that way. So you can see it's not that easy. You think it's just a 1/2 step away. Oh, I can see a 1/2 step away really easy. Oh, yeah? What is a 1/2 step away from D sharp? It is D, but can you see it? What is a 1/2 step away from F? Do you know quick? Well, of course it's E because it's part of the E, F, B, C, B, E, F, B. Those two great spaces in between the 2s and the 3s. Yes, but do you know that that's the major 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, major 7, 8 of Major Street. That's the 7th house on Major Street. It's called the major 7th house on Major Street. It's an important house. It's different than the 7. Because the 7 is on Bluestown. It's not the right address. If you put B7 on a address card and you send it to someone who has a Christmas card, they wouldn't get it until Easter or maybe in July 4th. Because you put the wrong address on. It should have said B major 7 to get to the right house in Major Town. Because B7 would have been addressed over to Bluestown, they would have to forward and look up where could there be a person named B major 7. Oh yeah, it's over here on this town, in Major Town. And it happens from B to A sharp is a major 7. From C to B is a major 7. From C sharp to C is major 7. From D to D sharp. But listen, I'm easy if I'm crawling like this chromatic city-wise, but it's a lot harder if I go letter, 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 letter. Look at my thumb. Look at my thumb. It's only letters. It's only letters. It's only letters. I ran out of keys there. But I can feel and I know the distance of a major 7. It's so great to know distances, and you only have to learn from 1 to 8 and everything in between. Except for a half, because that's not here. So if you go 1 to 8 and everything in between, which is 12 of them, and that feel of that distance, you'll be playing really quick, playing really fast. So I'm not going to say this is over. This is not the end. No, this is the beginning. I'm just trying to repeat myself. Oh, repeating rhymes with Studio E. Anything that rhymes with E has to do with Studio E. So include electronics and everything